Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Stamperia Blue Dream mini album tutorial series designed for Scrap and Create. In this video, we're going to begin decorating page 4 of the mini album. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the main paper that I'm going to be using for the outside of the page. So first I need to start cutting this apart. Now I'm going to cut this piece first, and I'm going to cut this side of the paper here. I'm going to cut this to 2 3/4 of an inch. So that will go here. There will be a uniform border around this entire piece. Next, we're going to be cutting this paper to fit on these two flaps. Now it's going to tuck just slightly underneath of the flap that we just covered so that that pattern actually looks continuous, but you still see that there is a flap there. So I'm going to remove this for now. I'm going to flip this open, and we're going to work on this piece. Now we need to cut this part here, but we're not going to make a straight cut either direction. We're going to just be cutting this section. So we have to be very careful how we do this. On this one, I'm going to be cutting straight across at the bottom of this windowsill ledge. And then here, I'm going to be coming over to 4 7/8 of an inch. So I'm going to place the top of my paper along the score line. So I'm going to place my paper and my trimmer at 4 7/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to come down here where that ledge is, and I'm just going to cut that. Then I'll turn my paper and I'm going to cut this way right up to that line that I had cut. So now I have pieces that look like this. So what's going to happen is I'm going to swing this one out of the way. This piece is going to fit on the page like this. Then this piece will fit right over top of it. And then we have this piece here. So everything when it's on the page will still show that continuous pattern of the paper, but then you have those slight edges so that you do know that there are flaps there. First, we're going to adhere this piece right down to the front of this flap, and then we'll come back and place our closure. Once this piece is on, I'm just going to place this piece on my page for reference so that I know where I need to place my closure piece. So I'm just going to line this up where it should be. Then I'm going to close this, and I'm going to be using this ephemera piece, and I'm going to place this here partly off the edge of the paper. So I'm going to layer it with this one, but it's going to look like it's one of the potted plants, for the doorway too. So it's going to bring both of these images together. So I'm going to remove the backing from this entire piece. And then very carefully place this where I want it to be. Only on this part of the flap. Then I'm going to open up and place my magnet. And my magnet is going to be partially on the flap and partially on that little flower pot. I'm going to take a scrap piece of my cardstock, and first I'm going to place just a little bit of adhesive on my magnet. I'm going to place this right up against the edge of my flap, so it's only partially covering my magnet. Then I'm going to take my scissors and fussy cut around this edge, leaving a small border. Next, I'm going to add my magnet to my piece, add my adhesive, and then close this to place the magnet on the flap. Then I'm going to apply this paper to cover my magnet. Once my paper's on, I'm going to go ahead and close that piece to make sure everything latches okay. We'll come back and add more to this a little bit later. We're going to come up here next and add some different things, but we need to first remove the brad from this hole, and we're going to set that aside for now. I have one white photo mat that measures 4 inches by 4 3/4. I'm going to place it here with a small border. And then I have a piece of my light blue cardstock that measures 3/4 by 4 3/4. And I'm going to place it here right next to my photo mat. Once it's on, I'm going to re-pierce the hole so that my brad can still go down through it. I have this little piece from the ephemera assortment, and I'm going to be placing it here. So I'm only going to be removing the backing from the left side of my piece, leaving the backing on the rest so that the photo will slide up underneath of it. Next, I'm going to add this piece right over top the front of my card. Then I'm going to re-pierce this hole. I'm going to take the bird charm from the pack from Scrap and Create, slide my brad down through it, then slide this through the hole in the flap, and then I'm going to slide this down through the hole on the page. Open everything up and secure those prongs on the back side of the page. So now this will swivel, so you'll be able to see the picture. The bird stays there and acts as a decoration. Next, we're going to work on the piece to cover the magnet here. So I have a strip of the dark blue paper. It measures 1 inch by 8 inches. And I need to cut this. It's going to be a little bit of a different cut. So I'm going to line up my edge so that on the left side, I am cutting a piece that is 3/8 of an inch wide. And I'm going to cut this down to 5 7/8 of an inch. Then I'm going to just take my scissors and cut that piece off. So when I place my piece here, I will have that edge here. And then down here, I'm going to need to trim this so that it will fit around my closure piece correctly. So I am going to take this and very carefully I flipped it over so that I can see where the edges are on this. And I'm just going to start to remove some of this paper with my scissors. Now, once I have some of that paper removed, I'm going to go ahead and here on this side and just use my scissors and a pencil and draw some of these lines so that I'm following the curves in my paper. Now that I have the correct shape, I'm going to just go ahead and adhere this down. For this side, we're going to cut 2 white photo mats to 2.5 by 3.5. I'm going to place one up here at the top and then one down here at the bottom. And then I have this little tiny piece of paper here cut to 7/8 by 2.5. It's going to go in the center. And that paper was cut from the 8x8 paper pad. It looks like this. It's actually the back of the front cover of the book. So you'll just need to cut that one little piece. I'm going to apply all of these. Then we're going to come in here and we're going to actually add a pocket because I forgot to do that when we were building. And then we'll start decorating this part. Next, I've cut a piece of cardstock to 8.25 by 3 inches. I've scored this at 1/2 inch on the bottom and folded on the score line to make a pocket, just like we did with the previous pages. And I'm going to place this down here along the bottom edge. Then we'll place our paper here and then we'll glue those sides down to make this into a pocket. I'm going to use a piece of the darker color cardstock to match this. I've cut this to 6 inches by 8 inches, and I'm going to place this here, and then I will add my adhesive to the sides and close my pocket. One thing to be careful of when you're making this into your pocket, you need to place this on the page first. Make sure that both of your flaps will close without that pocket puckering in the middle. If it is not small enough, you'll need to just trim a little bit off of the edge so that it lays flat. Once it's the right size, go ahead and adhere those sides down to form that pocket. From the 12 by 12 paper, this was just a leftover piece. It was a little bit larger. I cut this down so it's 2.25 by 8 inches. And we're going to apply this right to the front of the pocket. And this is from the 8x8 paper. We used this previously. I'm going to fussy cut this piece here and place it up here as a decoration. So I'm going to be fussy cutting along this red band around my shells and a red band on both sides. So I'm going to have that band and then those shells. So I'm going to do this. I'll come back, show you what it looks like, and we'll apply it to our page. Here is my piece after I finished fussy cutting it. I also am going to take this from the 8x8 cut apart sheet and I'm going to apply these here towards the top. But I'm going to actually cut just this little tiny end piece off because I'm going to place that over here on this side and place this little card right right here like this. So I'm going to take the piece I fussy cut first, add my adhesive, and then I'll apply this towards the top of the page, but tucking underneath of this card here. And then even with the edge over here on the right-hand side. Now I'm going to take my card and apply it down, and then I'll add the little piece at the very end, just underneath the left-hand side of the card. And I'm just going to eye this and try to get this to be relatively even with this one here. But if you don't feel like you can eye it, you can always measure so that it is straight across your page. I've also taken this little piece from the 8x8. I backed it on some cardstock, and I'm thinking I'm going to place it down here on this pocket and then add a couple of my little embellishments or my adhesive ephemera pieces. So I'm going to add my piece right into the center of my pocket. So I'm going to bring in my centering roller just to make sure that I have this in the center. So I'm just going to add one shell up here to this top corner and then one shell down to the bottom corner. I don't want to add a lot of bulk here, just a little bit of decoration. Then it ties it in with this part up here. For the pocket, I have a 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 cardstock mat. I have 2 white photo mats that measure 4 inches by 5.5. They're going to go on each side at the bottom. And then this was cut from one of the other pieces of 12 by 12. This was also a part of it. It looks like the back of that larger clock paper. I just cut 2 strips of it to 1.5 by 5.5. And I'm going to place, oh, I didn't cut these the right size. They should be 1.5 by 5.5. And one piece will go on the top of each side of the photo mat. The photo mat's going to go in the pocket. For the last part, we're going to take one white photo mat measuring 4 inches by 5 1/4. It's going to go here in the center. And then I've got these pieces. They are from the back side of the 8x8 paper pad, the front cover. I've cut 2 pieces to 2 inches by 5 1/4. One piece is going to go here and one is going to go here. And now that this piece is covered, we can go ahead and close up that flap. Close this one, and the magnet closure will hold the page together. So we're now finished with the front side of page 4. We're going to flip over and start on the back side of the page. And this is the main paper that we're going to be using for the page. So for this paper, we're going to be cutting this here and cutting here down the center to place it on here and here. And if you remember, we're going to have a tag that tucks into the pocket to hold those flaps closed. This is actually going to be a pretty simple cut. So the first one is going to be right along this edge of the railing. So I'm just going to place this in my paper trimmer and line my guide wire up with that. On mine, it is 3 1/8 of an inch. So that's going to be the bottom portion. Then I'm just going to be cutting this piece in half at 4 inches. So each of these pieces will fit right on my flaps here. This piece is going to fit here. Now the bottom one is fine how it is. We're going to slightly trim these top ones. So I'm going to take from the top edge, I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off on both of these pieces. So now you're going to see a nice uniform border around the top and on the bottom. I've got my pages in just a little bit more towards the inside so that there's only that little tiny line here, and you can see where the flaps and the pocket are. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere all of this down to my page, and then we'll come back and we'll get started on the inside. Once the flaps are covered, we're going to go ahead and open these, bring the pocket down for now. This is from the 12 by 12 paper. It's the same one that we just cut for the front. I just took the top portion of it and I cut this to 8 inches by 5.5 inches. And then I cut a 1/2 inch off the bottom or off the top. So this measures 5 inches by 8 inches. I'm going to place this here right on the top of the page. Then I'm going to close up my pocket. And the reason that I cut this the way I did is I didn't want the sailboat to be down underneath of my pocket. So that's why I had to take the 1/2 inch off the top edge. So go ahead and adhere this down, place your adhesive on the sides of your pocket and create your pocket. For my flaps, I have 2 photo mats that measure 3.5 by 4 3/4. I'm going to place one on each side just past that score line. And then I have some of the blue paper that is 3/8 by 4 3/4. And I'm going to place this on the ends here and here. So I'm going to add these pieces on, then we'll come back and add our photo mat for our pocket. I did add some of the ephemera pieces here. They are open here so that the photo will slide under, and they're only adhered to the blue part of the cardstock. And next we're going to cut a photo mat 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. 2 white mats that measure 4 inches, excuse me, by 5.5 inches. They're going to go down at the bottom. And then this was one of the bottom pieces from the back side of this. It was the 12 by 12 of this page. It's this bottom strip. And I cut it to 1.5 inches by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to place one on the top of each photo mat and place the photo mat in the pocket. Once the photo mat's finished, placed in the pocket, go ahead and close up those flaps. Take your graphic 45 tag. If you have the tag die, go ahead and cut your background paper. I'm using the light blue. Remember, if you don't have that tag die, you can just cut a rectangle of cardstock, use a corner rounder and apply that. And I've taken this cut apart card and added it to the center. Back is plain. And I'm just going to go ahead and tuck this here in my pocket to keep everything closed. Now, if you want, you can leave this out a little bit more so you can see that archway. So it just kind of gives it the illusion, just a bunch of different layers. And the way you look at the page, you can just see all of the different pretty papers. So now page 4 is completely finished. That's the back side. We've got our front side. Next, we're going to bring our album in and place the page in the album. So I have my album base in. I've pulled my pages to the side. The only one that's not is page number 6. It's still down here at the bottom. I'm going to take my adhesive. We're going to apply this final page to the right hand hinge section. So we're going to apply our adhesive first to this top 1/2 inch section. Again, making sure not to go past that score line. Then I'm going to open up my page and place it right next to that score line. And making sure everything is straight top and bottom. and then I'll burnish this down. Then I'll flip the page over. I'm going to scoot this so it's easier to see and be in frame. Then I'm going to add my adhesive to that back of the 1/2 inch tab section. And then across the bottom to seal up that page and make that pocket between the pages. And then I'm going to close up my page, seal up the bottom part, and make sure it's adhered to my hinge. So now we have page 6. We're going to work next on page 5. And we have page 4, page 3, page 2, and page 1. So in the next video, we are going to start on page 5, and then we'll add that to the album and we'll be almost finished. So stay tuned. And if you are just joining us for this series, all of the Blue Dream papers that I'm using in the tutorial are available on the Scrap and Create website. Everything is linked for you in the description box below, so go ahead and check that out.